Hello and welcome to the Burn KC ScorchCast. I am your host, Alex Blackburn, here to bring you the good KC sports news. Got a decent-sized show today. A few things to talk about in regard to the sports world of Kansas City. Got some college basketball to talk about, some college football spring camp updates, a few soccer items to go over. We've got some Royals stuff. Could be asking the hard questions with that one. Got some minor news, and overall, just kind of covering our normal scheduled stuff. So strap in, sit tight, and enjoy the show. I am very sore from a rugby game yesterday. I don't know if you guys see that right there. I got elbowed in the face, but it comes with the territory of playing rugby. Still a great time. Still enjoyed it. Very, very, very windy out there in Wichita, Kansas. But we managed, and overall, rugby's fun no matter what. So, I'm gonna talk a little bit about that as well. So, let's get started. All right, so we've got some college basketball news first. First and foremost, congratulations to the South Carolina women's team. The Gamecocks won their third NCAA Women's Basketball National Championship over Caitlin Clark and the Iowa Hawkeyes. Dawn Staley is a fantastic coach, and she has brought on so much talent to that team that has made them a perennial contender in women's basketball. And, you know, if you watched college basketball this year, you kind of saw that the women's game has equaled or overcame popularity over the men's game. And a lot of that has to do with kind of the stars of the game: Cardosa, Caitlin Clark, Paige Bruckers, Haley Van Lith, Angel Reese. There's a lot. There seems to be a lot more stars in the women's game than in the men's game. Like a lot more players that stick out. And it really showed with this, in the Elite Eight and Final Four of the women's bracket. You saw a ton of talent. There were super exciting, exhilarating games. And just, you didn't know who was going to come out on top. And, compared to the men's games, I mean, UConn has just ran through everybody. Purdue has also kind of looked like a team of destiny. I guess, losing to that 16 seed last year really affected them. And now we have a matchup between a team that has just looked utterly dominant this year versus a team that has the National Player of the Year, has, had their faults, but still looks like a team that can compete with this juggernaut that is the UConn Huskies. Going back to my point, though, it just doesn't seem as exciting as the women's game, as the women's Elite Eight and Final Four has been. I barely paid attention to the Final Four games this year. And obviously, though I'm a Kansas fan, so anytime Kansas is knocked out of the tournament, I just turn it off. That's not true. at all. I just I found myself watching a lot more of the women's games than I did the men's games this year. And that I think that says a lot about where women's basketball is headed. Um, Nonetheless, Klingon versus Edie will also be a very good matchup. Um, the fact that it's at 8 o'clock on a Monday is so stupid. And I think that they need to change that. But, I'm not part of the NCAA. I am an open critic, really, of the NCAA. And I just don't get it. I don't get it. Nonetheless, though, let's talk local hoops. Let's talk Mizzou, K-State, and Kansas. Kansas got a couple of pretty good recruits in the transfer portal. One of them being Lawrence native Zeke Mayo. Zeke Mayo was with the South Dakota State Jackrabbits, who did pretty well in their conference this year and have done pretty well. Um, and one of the leaders of that team was Zeke Mayo. Zeke Mayo was a 15 to 20 point per game scorer who got rebounds, is incredibly athletic, and will benefit the Jayhawks heavily. Um, I believe the Jayhawks got another pretty good recruit that I can't remember for the life of me. Obviously, they got Mayo. So Mayo's going to be a great asset. I mean, the Jayhawks need athleticism. They need, somebody there that can take control. I mean, he's a great perimeter shooter too, which is another much needed item for the Jayhawks. And just overall, I, I'm interested to see where it goes. Um, gonna be gonna be a good season, I think, because the Jayhawks are bouncing back in terms of who they have on that roster, who you know, and Bill Self's overcorrected essentially, which is what the KU faithful wanted, and I'm still trying to figure out um, who that other transfer was because I'm pretty sure we had another one because it was Zeke Mayo, and then gosh, what is his name? A little bit of radio silence here. I apologize. Um, just really trying to find this kid because it wasn't just Zeke Mayo. It was another guy. Nonetheless, I'm completely blanking on it right now. I'm sure I'll figure it out later. Gotta keep the show moving, so I apologize. But as far as Kansas State goes, Cam Carter committed to LSU. He's a Louisiana kid, so and former K-State player, committed to LSU. I believe they had another recruit leave. I know that Jerome Tang was in the conversation for the Arkansas job. It looks like he has committed to staying at Kansas State, so no more worries about that. And that's kind of where Kansas State is, and then Missouri, I haven't heard anything on that front. So not really much going on there. So not a ton of news on the college basketball front as far as the local teams go. Um, I'm going to look this up in between segments, and in the next segment, I will announce who exactly that was. So give me 1 second. We're going to go to college football, and I will figure out the name of that other recruit here in just a sec. So hang tight. Riley Kugel was the name that I was thinking of. He's a Florida transfer and is also a really athletic, versatile kid who is going to help the Jayhawks immensely. And he was very highly recruited. Um, my apologies if you're just tuning into the Scorch clip and we're expecting um, some college football opening. I in the previous clip that I recorded for college basketball, I forgot the name and completely blanked on the name of Riley Kugel. My sincere apologies. Um, let's get into some college football. Spring camp updates. So I haven't heard much on the K-State or Missouri training camps or spring camps. Um, I know that Missouri got a commitment from Matt Zoller, who is one of the top quarterback prospects in the 2025 class. So a big time commitment there. I know they're hot on the recruiting trail right now. They're really building and trying to sustain um, that success that they saw last year. Obviously, they lost Cody Schrader, um, are going to lose Brady Cook next year. Luther Burden's probably gone next year too. So they just kind of have to keep hammering the recruiting trail and making sure that that recruitment and that success is sustained. So that's really all I got for Missouri as of now. I know that they got, transfers in Oklahoma's Caden Green, and others. Uh, it's the name of the game for Mizzou is sustain and just making sure that you can replicate that success of last year. So that's kind of their focus of the spring. Kansas State, obviously, is developing Avery Johnson, finding that wide receiver core. They got a better wide receiver core than they do last year. They're younger, but they're better than Phillip Brooks and nobody else. I guess you had Ben Sinnott too, but I mean, Sinnott and Brooks could only do so much. So Avery Johnson with a good core of receivers could be dangerous, and he's looking to make it a good sophomore campaign. Um, and that's kind of their focus. The defense didn't take a whole lot of losses via transfer portal, via NFL draft, via graduation. So they'll probably look the same. And again, just kind of maintaining those successes on defense for the Wildcats is the name of the game for spring. For Kansas, no. Kansas has had an interesting spring camp. Um, Lots of injuries. Calvin Clements, Lawrence Arnold, and most recently, Rashawn Hanukkah. Sorry, I had to think of his name. Let's talk about Hanukkah because he was projected to be the starting tight end for the Jayhawks this year. He has unfortunately torn his Achilles. So that could potentially put him out for this upcoming season. You hope that that's not the case. You hope that there's time to heal. But I think, with torn Achilles injuries, it's really tough to say how much time he's going to miss. It kind of just depends on how torn it is. Those injuries can linger too. Torn Achilles can come back easier once you tear them for the first time. Um, and unfortunately, that's just a major blow to the Jayhawks. The injuries to Clements and Arnold are just going to keep him out for the spring. But this injury has the potential to keep Hanukkah out for a pretty substantial amount of time. So I'll keep you updated on that. It's super unfortunate. You hate to see those spring practice injuries. Um, looking at the field that KU was having their practices on, at least one of them, it was not the most ideal turf. So you have to wonder how much that had to do with it. You're hoping, you know, it just looked like a bunch of dead grass. I mean, you can't have that, especially when you're trying to do better than you did last year, especially when you're a Big 12 title contender. That's just not something that you you can sustain, and you hope Kansas can bounce back from it. Um, you got to build your linebackers. You got to build your pass rushers again. But other than that, I think the Jayhawks have an excellent chance at replicating their successes from last year and even superseding them. So there's great expectations, and these injuries are just, they range from the annoying and inconvenient to this hurts our program quite a bit. And it's the most injuries I've seen for a spring camp in quite some time. So I think the Jayhawks need to look at how they're doing spring camps, what kind of surfaces they're practicing on, and everything like that, um, and just kind of reevaluate because that's just not sustainable. So you hope that fixes itself. Obviously, the Jayhawks are trending up right now in terms of football, and just drawbacks like these are really, really painful for a blooming program like the Kansas Jayhawks. So, um, other than that, really not much else going on the college football front. Um, Go check out my latest college football dogs article that just got released. It's a Kansas Jayhawks spring preview. Hope you enjoy it. Go check out my pro days article as well. That kind of gives you a rundown of how the pro days went. I also talked about it in my last ScorchCast. And just, yeah, that's kind of it for college football dogs, or that's it for college football. Um, the segment for it. Let's go into some soccer. All right. So let's talk about some soccer. First, the Kansas City Current. The Current are off to a 3-0 start. They beat Angel City last week, April 30th. They did not have a game, I don't think so, at least. This week, let me double check. It may be today that they play, but I'm not positive. I did not see a game. Oh, they Nope. Yep. They're on a bye week. Their next game is against Gotham FC, who is a solid team. They will play Sunday, April 14th at the current stadium. So that game's at 5. Should be a good one. Gotham's got a lot of USA players on their team, and that'll be a tough matchup. But I think the Current are ready for it. They're currently atop the NWSL standings, and they look real hot right now. It looks like a team possessed, to be honest. The offense is really, really clicking. They're averaging like 3 to 4 goals a game, which is spectacular. And just keeping that offense up is the name of the game. Like I said in the past couple of ScorchCasts, you can keep if you can keep the offense up, you don't really have to worry too much about the defensive holes until you get to teams that can match your offense. Um, I think there are still some things that need to be worked on in terms of the Kansas City Currents defense. They're not very good on the back foot. They do make their mistakes when they're playing in their own half, and they just have to clean those up in order to maintain their current positioning because it is still early in the season, so maintaining top form throughout the season is borderline impossible. They're eventually going to lose. However, this is a great start for the ladies. You hope that they can continue this form for as long as they can and get themselves a one seed in the playoffs. Um, it's looked very, very impressive so far. And it's a great way to open up um, the new stadium. So good on the ladies. As for sporting, they choked away a 3-0 lead today, which is inexcusable. Yeah, it ended in a tie. So, they got points out of it, but I mean, how do you choke away a 3-goal lead? That's absolutely inexcusable. Um, it's it's really disappointing because I thought this was a Sporting KC team that had stellar defense that could hold it down in terms of possession and in terms of clock management and in terms of offensive efficiency. And they did that for the first half and then just fell apart. I mean, that is not going to fly against teams like Inter Miami. That's not going to fly against teams like LAFC or any of these teams that have these excellent players that know how to capitalize off turnovers, know how to create their own offense. I mean, this was a really disappointing outing from Sporting, and you hope that they can bounce back. This is probably the worst I've felt about a tie in regard to Sporting, at least. So, overall, I think Vermees is going to really lay into them after this past game. Sporting has who do they have next? They're currently seventh in the Western Conference right now. So not bad. But they have Inter Miami next, which is Lionel Messi's team. So exactly my point in saying, hey, like it's time to lock in now. You can't get complacent. You can't I mean, that is the last thing you want to do. And you know, we'll just have to see. We'll just have to see what goes on because I really, yeah, not feeling too great about Sporting Casey at the moment. So we'll see where it goes. I mean, Vermees bounced back last year, um, but not the best start, but certainly not the worst start for Sporting Casey. All right. You know who has had a hot start though? The Kansas City Royals. The Royals are currently 6-4. Excuse me, 7-4 now, with a win in a sweep over the Chicago White Sox. Y'all, it's 11 games into the season. I get it. But are the Royals fun again? Are they a fun baseball team to watch? Are they for real this year? It it certainly seems like it. And you hope that this success can be sustained because obviously we've seen this story before as Royals fans. Um, they start off hot and then they just hit this mid-season slump that they don't seem to get out of until it's too late. So there's a lot of skepticism still, and it's warranted. But this Royals team feels different in that they're producing consistent offense. Their starting pitching is the best in baseball right now, which is crazy. I mean, Cole Reagans has been phenomenal, as has Seth Lugo, as has the rest of the starting rotation. The relievers could use some work, but I mean, this baseball team looks primed to make a run at the AL Central and at the playoffs. And I don't want to say, oh, it's coming at the right time or anything, given all the stuff regarding the voting of the stadium sales tax and all that, stuff that I talked about last week. Uh, that speaking of that, Jackson County spoke their minds, and I'll actually get into that in just a sec. I want to do the good stuff about the Royals first. They're they look primed to make a run at the playoffs, and they look like a new team. They look like a team that wants to put in effort, that is passionate about giving fans a good product, and it looks like a team that has had time, effort, and energy put into it, and money, and good coaching put into it. And I can't. I'm satisfied with how it's looked so far, and you hope it continues. What I am not satisfied with, though, is the reaction to the no vote that happened on April 2nd. Jackson County spoke their mind. Jackson County said, go back to the drawing board and give us something that will benefit the community more, that is more well planned, that isn't as half baked as this current plan was, and doesn't feel as thrown together. And the reaction from Royals ownership, I other than Mark Donovan, I haven't heard a whole lot from Chiefs ownership regarding it. But in Mark Donovan can just shut his mouth. In all honesty, it's not his money that's being spent. It's Clark Hunt's, and Clark has been oddly silent regarding this vote. Really all I've heard is that, yeah, we're disappointed, but we're gonna work towards next steps. Um, Boy, howdy, though. The Sherman family sure hasn't been silent on it. um, if you don't know, the wife of John Sherman, Royals owner John Sherman, took to Facebook and essentially berated Jackson County for voting against the stadium sales tax extension, and said that the Royals are never going to work with Johnson County again, and that There's little chance that they'll end up in Kansas even, and this could result in catastrophic results for Kansas City and blah 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 blah. Just a tirade, a tantrum, and it looks awful on the part of John Sherman. And if I'm John Sherman, I am immediately condemning that because it makes you look terrible in front of the city that you are currently tenants of. And when you're a millionaire, essentially a billionaire at this point, and you're taking to Facebook to throw a tantrum about how you didn't get your way, about how you were told no, because the plan that you had in place was so half-baked, so low effort, and thrown together that, I mean, come on. Sherman, you're an adult. Act like one. Don't go to Facebook to rant about how you didn't get your way and how, oh, I don't want to work with Johnson County ever or Jackson County ever again. They were so mean. No. Jackson County loves the Royals. Jackson County loves the Chiefs. What? I haven't met a single no voter that has said, yeah, I did this because I don't like the Royals, or I did this because I don't like the Chiefs. I've met people that have said they don't like John Sherman. I've met people that said they don't like Clark Hunt, but that's justified, especially now, given complete the complete tantrum of a response to this no vote. I mean, seriously, Jackson County is telling you to go back to the drawing board. They're not telling you we don't want you here. Oh, we don't like you. And the fact that you were trying your absolute hardest to pull on those emotional strings, to hold this city hostage for their love of the Chiefs and the Royals, to the point of where you have a lot of yes voters that are just like, you doomed the Royals and Chiefs. No, you haven't. There's still another 7 years to work something out. And I mean, the response has been unbelievably bad so far. The fact that you are just shutting down negotiations because you didn't get your way the first time is the most unadult, churlish response you could have had. I liked the fact that John Sherman said, yeah, we're gonna work, towards next steps. That Clark Hunt said, yeah, we're gonna work towards next steps. But John Sherman's wife taking to Facebook, Mark Donovan actively saying, this is, this was our best foot forward. It's the people around the owners that are, I hope at least, not showing. I don't want to believe that that's the true ownership opinion of both the Chiefs and the Royals, but it gives me a gut feeling that it is. And I hate it because if you're not willing to negotiate, that shows that you are not giving the same love back to Kansas City, back to the Chiefs and the Royals, the organizations themselves that you own, the fans are giving them. And that shows that you shouldn't own those teams. Clark Hunt, your dad was Lamar Hunt, one of the greatest sports owners of all time. A guy that molded the biggest sports organization in the world into what it is today. And this is how you treat your franchise? Your dad's franchise? No wonder you got an F from the NFLPA. John Sherman, control the people around you. Your wife should not be taking to Facebook to air out grievances against people that spoke their minds, that engaged in democracy, that engaged in civic duty, that told you, hey, we don't like this plan, but we're willing to work with you on a new one. That's what the no voters said. They didn't say, oh, we don't like the Royals. We want you gone. What kind of ridiculousness is that? What kind of bonehead actually thinks that? Apparently, John Sherman's wife. It's ridiculous. I hope that she's deleted it by now because that is the most unprofessional, churlish opinion that I've ever seen. Completely out of touch, too. And it shows you why people don't like billionaires. Because you guys pull stuff like this. Get it together. Anyway, gonna talk about um a little bit about Rashi Rice's situation. And then we're gonna wrap up. So just stay tuned. Okay, so a little bit on the Rashi Rice situation. Rashi Rice, what was found in his car? If you don't already know the situation, Rashi Rice got into an accident in Dallas, Texas, where he allegedly fled the scene to an accident that he caused and is now potentially facing, at the very least, a hefty fine and suspension. Um, and that fine may be even heftier, and that suspension maybe as well after some information was found out. Allegedly, there was 10.8 grams of marijuana in the car. That is not, by the way, a felony in the state of Texas. A felony would be 11 ounces, what I have read on Texas state law. Yes, street racing is still a felony. Yes, leaving the scene of an accident would be as well. However, Rice is Rice is still, working with authorities. He still has one of the best lawyers in the state of Texas. It's the guy that got Jerry Jones out of all of his stuff. We all know what Jerry Jones did. And overall, it doesn't look horrible for Rice. It could have been a lot worse, I'll say that. But this is not a good look at all. And the whole thing about let's not judge a guy based on his worst moment, I agree. I think right as long as Rice learns from this and becomes a better man from it, I don't think it's nearly as bad as if, he didn't learn anything from it and eventually goes on to repeat it with a similar action. There's a lot to be deconstructed about that, but since we're nearing the end of the show, I'm not gonna bore you with metaphysics. Um, But overall, I think what we're looking at in terms of Rashi Rice's suspension, or excuse me, Rashi Rice's punishment, is probably a hefty fine, a suspension, and a court date that results in another hefty fine. So just a bad situation overall. Um, Chiefs also signed Carson Wentz as their backup quarterback. So congrats to Carson Wentz on like his fifth team. I think it's a good backup signing. I think Wentz has still a little bit of juice in him. I trust him as a backup. I sure as heck don't trust him as a starter, but I think he's a good backup to Patrick Mahomes. He's a mobile guy who could potentially be worked into with QB sneaks and other potential trick plays. Um, so overall, not a bad signing. In other news, we the Blues went to Wichita yesterday, suffered a tough loss. But thanks to Wichita for putting on a good showing of rugby and a good social showing. It was a lot of fun. I hadn't been to that area of Wichita for a very long time. It's interesting to see how well it's grown over the past few years. Um, and I can say the same about the rugby team. I've been playing their rugby team for a long time, and they have a great program there. So, congrats to Wichita for the win. Thank you so much for having us. It was a great time. The Blues will be playing at home next week against Arkansas. That one should also be a good match. Arkansas is a tough side, so the Blues are going to give them all that they can handle. So that's our show. Thank you so much for joining me. This has been Alex Blackburn of the Burn KC signing on. Have a great night.